CCNA security, UTM devices. It is one of my favorite topics to every time I show and explain how a UTM device works. It's really awesome that you can buy an all-in-one device that is really easy to set up, manage, and has a lot of features. In this lecture, I want to show you a UTM device, Cyberom, that is a wireless device as well, something that I bought more than a year ago, and we'll show you how it works, what I set up on it, and we'll take it from there. Okay, here you can see that is my rack. UTM Cyberom is over here. Let me grab a pen. It is over here and here, and it is connected to, just change that one. There are two cables. The red one goes to my ISP and the blue one goes to, no, I'm lying to you, yeah, sorry. The blue one goes to my ISP, and to be more specific to ASA, and the red one goes to my LAN local area network, and that's all I have on this device. As you can see, it goes to an ASA firewall, and you can say, why do you have an ASA firewall as well? Well, because I like to have a real device at home, and I work with ASAs, and that's why I like to have an ASA at home. This guy, Cyberom, is really an IPS device. It's not really a firewall, LAN to WAN. I'll show you that in a moment. You will see that there is one rule, allow any. Yeah? And there are 2-3 things that this device is responsible for. So first of all, it is an IPS, intrusion prevention system. Second of all, it is AV, anti-spam, and layer 7 firewall. Yeah, in a way, firewall. Yep. All UTM features. Yep. Then the last thing, it is a router. Okay. I mentioned that when I discussed ASA firewalls, this guy is running a base license. It means that, well, you cannot route between your VLANs. That's why I use Cyberom to route between all VLANs. And that's what defines a UTM device, that it is an all-in-one device with a lot of interesting features that you can enable. It's IPS, AV, spam protection, layer 7 firewall, layer 8 firewall, router, VLANs. This is wireless as well. Not sure if you can see that if I remove here. That's wireless as well. And I use that as a backup wireless device in my network. Okay, let's connect. You can manage this device using a web interface, and you can do some basic show commands from the CLI. When you make a backup, it's not going to create a file like Cisco. It's not running config all text files. No, not really. It's a pity. Zyzo, that I'm going to show you next, is better because it is a text file. I'm not sure why Cyberom decided not to do that. Well, there was a reason behind. What I mean by that is that when you make a backup, there is a file that makes no sense. It's not a text file, it's not a running config that you can take and paste somewhere else. It's a pity. Is it a mistake? Well, you can argue. For me, it doesn't matter. I can manage that from the web interface. Almost all UTM devices will start with, will welcome you, and you will see a dashboard. You can customize all these fields. You can move them around. You can add and remove modules here and things that you want to see. The idea is to give you as much information as possible on one screen. We want to see some graphs, we want to see signatures, we want to see updates, we want to see things that have been detected in the last, I don't know, 6 months or 6 days, 6 hours, it all depends. Unfortunately, I can't scroll it down because there are some license. Yeah, there's my license below. That's why I can't scroll down here, and I'm too lazy to use an application and hide it. I'll show you that using some options over here later on. We'll start with system and administration. That is a place where you can decide how you want to manage your UTM device. Of course, you can change your port numbers, you can create accounts and decide how you can manage your device. This is a nice screen. I like the way that they designed it. It is pretty easy to decide how you can access your device, and it's pretty easy. You don't need a dedicated access list. You can decide, for instance, please note that there is DMZ and you can't manage that device from that DMZ. Of course, guest is not allowed either. Yeah, I have authentication services because I use that as a proxy server. That's why it is enabled. But of course, I can manage that from LAN and WAN. WAN is allowed because it is not my edge firewall. Okay, of course you can change your password. Configuration. Here again, things that's what the system is all about. Yeah, what applies to the UTM device itself. Maintenance allows you to make a backup, update your license firmware, and start and stop services, right? And check that all of them are running at the moment. Of course, you could see that on using the dashboard as well. As you can see, I have all services running. Of course, if you want to disable a service, you can stop that, or you can just leave it up and running. It's not a big issue on that box, and then disable it under your firewall rules. Diagnostics. You can, what is interesting and really good, that you can do packet capture, which is really awesome. Not a lot of devices will have a feature like that, and it's really great. You don't need Wireshark and span ports, things like that. You can use a built-in tool and it does work. I have used that a few times. You can capture and of course open it in Wireshark later on if you don't like the screen, that information that you can see on the screen. Okay, objects, again, almost all UTM devices will allow you to do that. You can create, well, objects, right? You can create networks, hosts, services. What we mean by services is if there is a protocol that you need and it's not a default one that, for instance, is HTTP or HTTPS, then you should create a dedicated service or service group and use that in a rule, right? Okay. What else? Network, right? That's what is really interesting. It's interfaces or sub-interfaces. As I mentioned, I use that device as a router. That's why I have sub-interfaces to route between my VLANs. let's take a look at guest. Okay, guest, that's port A3. I have an IP address, DNS, and there are zones. Okay, that is a very you can find that on many UTM devices. I don't know why Cisco decided not to do it that way. There are no really zones on ASA firewalls, not sure why. But you can put, all interfaces in zones and then apply rules to them, right? That is a really great thing that you can do. Okay, let me show you voice. Okay, and let's check DMZ zone. Let me show you how you can add. You click add VLAN, then you go for an interface that you want to use, then VLAN ID, IP address, and it will create a sub interface, right? It will put A.3, that is VLAN 3, 599. Don't ask me why it's 99. I have no idea. It's just something I decided to use a couple of years ago, and it has been like that since. This is a wireless UTM device, that's why I have an access point here. I decided to create two SSIDs. One is guest, one is local. Gateway, that is your default route, and it points to the ASA file. Static routes, I don't need any static routes here because I use a default route. DHCP, and that is, I don't know why, but on that box you can have a DHCP server or DHCP relay. When I click on the relay, it will warn you that you can't really use both features. I have no idea why. It's really weird. It's not a problem for me. I think it might be a problem for some companies that you can't use both. Not sure why. I appreciate maybe not on the same interface, but I don't know. Well, that's the way it is. Of course, it supports dynamic DNS. I don't use that feature. Identity, which is really great. You can, I think I used that. Yeah, I used that for wireless, right? For guest wireless when I played with authentication. Firewalls. The firewall rules are not designed in a perfect way on that box. What I mean by that is, well, it would be very difficult to manage that box if I had 5,000 rules. Yeah, they are grouped in a weird way and it's not easy to manage them. Let me show you LAN to WAN, for instance. I have, that one is my default rule, LAN to WAN. Of course, I allow everything, but what I want to show you is that I apply the following security policies. I am going to scan all these things. Yep. IPS is disabled because in most cases you want to have IPS for traffic coming into your network. I'll show you that. And that's what I mean, it's not easy to find a rule. This one, and you will see that IPS is enabled here. Okay, that is for NAT. I played with it, that's why VNC is allowed. I wanted to play with NAT rules and see how you open a port on that box. It's not in use anymore. Spoof prevention, I use that. You will see a lot of logs on that cyber-roam because there is one subnet that has no access to the internet. I don't need that, but there is a default gateway. And that is one of the reasons I enabled IP spoofing, to make sure that my firewall will keep dropping these messages. DOS, there is a dedicated section for SYN, UDP and TCP. I had some problems with one of them. I don't remember which one. I think TCP. Yeah, that's why it's disabled. I think I had some problems with it. That's why it's disabled. Okay, and yeah, that's what I want to what I wanted to show you now. We will continue in part 2.